Ever wonder what a top-tier SEO expert really sees when they look at a slow website? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain and get a look inside that exact playbook. We're breaking down how the pros tackle core web vitals, which, as you know, is a huge factor in Google's rankings. Oh, we've all been there, right? You click a link and you're just staring at that endless loading spinner, that little moment of frustration right before you smash the back button. That is exactly what Google is trying to eliminate with a set of metrics they call core web vitals. And just to be super clear, this isn't some fluffy, nice-to-have goal. Nope. Google has made these vitals an official part of its ranking algorithm, so a bad score can directly hurt your traffic. It's pretty much Google's way of taking your site's pulse, and a weak pulse is a serious red flag. So, when an expert looks at a site, where do they even start? Well, they don't just start tweaking code at random. There's a method to the madness. They have a really clear, prioritized approach that zeroes in on a trio of metrics that are all about how a user feels on your site. First up, and you could argue it's the most important one, is largest contentful paint, or LCP for short. Just think of this as the how fast does it feel metric. It's a technical number behind that immediate gut reaction a user has when a page first starts to load. Now, what's really important to get here is that LCP doesn't care about the entire page loading time. It's laser focused on the single biggest thing. Maybe it's a big hero image or the main headline that pops up when you first land on the page. How fast does that one key piece of content show up? That, in a nutshell, is LCP. When LCP is lagging, an expert's checklist of usual suspects is surprisingly short and sweet. A slow server is, a problem at the very foundation. Huge unoptimized images are another classic bottleneck. And then you have render blocking resources, which are basically a traffic jam for your website. Nothing gets through until they're cleared. Okay, so once that initial load feels snappy, the expert's focus shifts to a whole different kind of user frustration, visual stability. This is measured by something called cumulative layout shift, or CLS, and it's all about making sure the page doesn't feel like it's jumping and jiggling around while it loads. Oh, you've definitely felt this. You go to tap a button, and right as your finger is about to touch the screen, an ad loads above it, pushes everything down, and you accidentally click the ad instead. That, right there, that infuriating jump, that's a layout shift, and CLS is the metric that calls it out. So what causes this digital earthquake? A lot of the time, it's something super simple, like an image that doesn't have its height and width defined, so the browser doesn't know to save a spot for it. Or yeah, it could be a late-loading ad that just shoves content right out of the way. Even a custom font that causes a jarring flash as it resizes text can be the culprit. And the final piece of our core vitals trio is a pretty new metric on the block called interaction to next paint, or INP. It actually replaced an older metric because it does a much better job of measuring how responsive a page is to your clicks and taps throughout your entire visit. To put it really simply, INP measures the lag between when you do something, like click a button, tap a menu, or type in a box, and when you actually see something happen on screen. A long delay here makes a site feel sluggish or honestly just plain broken. The main bad guy here is almost always heavy JavaScript. You can think of your browser's main processing power as a single-lane road. Well, a long JavaScript task is like a slow, oversized truck that's blocking that entire road. Nothing else can happen until it's finished its journey. All right, so we've identified our three main targets, LCP, CLS, and INP. But knowing what to measure is really only half the battle. Now, let's get into the expert's actual process for diagnosing and, more importantly, fixing the problems these metrics uncover. The whole diagnostic process really comes down to two different kinds of data. You've got lab data, which is like testing a car on a perfect closed track. It's a controlled environment. Then you have field data, which is that same car out in the real world with traffic, potholes, and bad weather. An expert knows you absolutely need both to see the full picture. And this workflow is a perfect example of that two-sided approach. You start the audit in the lab to find specific technical problems. Then you compare that with real-world user data to figure out which fixes will have the biggest impact. But here's the key. The process doesn't end with some report. It's a hands-on, collaborative effort with developers to get the solutions implemented. And here are some of those real-world fixes. For those giant images slowing down LCP, you convert them to modern, way more efficient formats. For code that's blocking the page from showing up, you reprioritize it, or just tell it to load later. See, it's a surgical approach, not a sledgehammer. But here's where the expert mindset really separates itself from just a technical checklist. It's not just about chasing a perfect 100 on a performance report. The real long-term goal is something much bigger and more strategic. This quote from an expert really gets to the heart of it. A one-time fix to get a green score is great, but it's a hollow victory if it breaks a week later. The real challenge, and the sign of a true pro, is building a culture where a new feature doesn't undo all that hard work. And that word, sustainable, isn't just a buzzword. It means a fundamental shift in how teams work. It means performance is no longer just an SEO thing that lives in a silo. It becomes a shared goal, a common language that brings SEO, UX, and development together to build a better experience for the user. So, when we strip away all the technical jargon, LCP, CLS, INP, all of it, what's the one single guiding principle that should be driving all of this work? And there it is. That's the whole philosophy right there. A fast, stable, and responsive website is, at its core, a sign of respect for the person on the other side of the screen. Every millisecond you save is you telling them that you value their time and their attention. So that really leaves us with the final question to think about. It's so easy to get caught up chasing metrics and checking boxes. But are you optimizing for a report, or are you optimizing for the person you're trying to connect with?